Well, welcome everybody to this 25-26 season preview. As I said on X, I'm joined by a stellar panel of guests. It's Ellie Jones and Paul Binning, aka the Exiled Robin, and somebody who knows more about the game than all three of us put together. That's former player, media pundit, Gary Hours. Welcome everybody, each of you in turn. Gary, how are you feeling in general about the upcoming season? Excited, more excited than you thought you would be?
Just like any other season, yeah, excited for one, and very optimistic. Looks like in terms of character and personality, so far we've made a very good appointment as manager, and hopefully can back that up with a few early wins to get everybody on the edge of the seat. And some good additions, some very good additions actually. I'm sure you'll come on to that, but the centre forward Reece and the midfielder Randall, excellent additions, and really will add something to this squad this season.
Yeah, Ellie last season finished as a bit of a damp squib, really. Not the greatest showing in the playoffs, even though we got there. Are you feeling? I sense of optimism bubbling along on the back of a couple of decent results, but friendlies mean anything. But how are you feeling about the upcoming fixtures and season?
Yeah, hi Dave. I don't think we can dwell too much on what happened at the end of last season. Making the playoffs was an amazing achievement for us, and what Manning did with the squad. Just felt like we kind of ran out of steam towards the end. Sort of the injuries caught up with us. We lost Williams. Unfortunately, we just got beaten by a far better side than us. But just draw a line on it. And what happened with Manning, I think not many of us were surprised when it actually came to foot, when it actually happened. So it seemed to take forever and a day for him and the assistants to actually go. And then there was that kind of excitement and the rumour mill of, oh my God, who are we getting in? He's linked. I mean, you can't really listen to everyone goes on Bet365, don't they? And oh my God, he's 10-1 and he's coming in. And I think the Lansdowns just took a calm approach, and Stu was here now, and I think we're all really excited to see what this season is going to entail.
Yeah, Paul, how do you feel? I felt after the first couple of friendlies, I felt a bit flat. It was a bit, but I watched the Plymouth game and was elevated. I went to the game against Real Valladolid, probably the wrong pronunciation. You still got to put the ball in the back of the net, and there's a definite change in style. I mean, but overall, how are you feeling? And since Ellie touched on it, how do you feel about the end of last season on reflection?
For me, the end of last season and the way it finished was obviously disappointing. But actually, I think I mentioned on a couple of shows at the end of the season, the atmosphere in that away end of the last game at Sheffield United was unbelievable. We were 6-0 down, and it was probably the most together I've seen City fans in years, 5 or 6 years. And hopefully, with the disappointment of Manning bailing out on us, I wouldn't even necessarily say disappointment in leaving for a lot of fans, but disappointment in bailing, that the appointment of Struber seems to have pulled people together. It seems largely positive. I think he's positive. He's a much more charismatic character and a much more likable character. And that's nothing against Liam at all. It's just it's not his style. It's not his style of speaking. But Struber seems to be very charismatic, very engaging. Fans seem to like him. They seem to be impressed by him. And I think we are going to see a different style of football. I think it'll be more positive and exciting. It might be a bit more leaky at the back and a bit more hairy, scary at times, I think. But there seems a bit more to it, doesn't there? And as Gary said, the signings so far look strong. We're probably 1 or 2 short still, but we always are, I guess, aren't you? Unless you're going to win the league. So, optimistic and positive, definitely.
Let's look at who left in the summer. Heart and head, Nahki Wells. I mean, he's made his position, his feelings clear on. I think it was on one of the other podcasts, and a very good interview. I think it was Stanley did that. I think it was on OSIB. But Nahki's gone. Would you have offered him a year or let him help out behind the scenes, or is it a case of hard-nosed business and that's it? He sounds like he wasn't managed particularly well.
100%. You're looking at any centre forward that's capable of getting double figures. in the Championship, and you want him in your side, and not necessarily as a coach. I think he was very focused and professional in his own right as a player. It looks like they've kept him hanging on a little bit, which is disappointing. You know, you can think of players that have left that have served the club very well. Think about Corey Smith, Nahki Wells leave under a little bit of a cloud, and that's always disappointing. But I'm sure he could have added something. Still, you know, very fit, has that desire and hunger, wants to score goals. And I think his natural personality is someone that would help out in the dressing room and help out the young players. In any case, we've seen that. So maybe, you know, if we're still looking for a striker, and we come up a little bit short, and it's a long way off the end of the season, we haven't even started yet, and you look at the goals that he could have potentially brought the team, then yeah, we're going to miss that.
Yeah, Ellie, heart versus head, heartless the way it was done by the sound of it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty shocking to hear the extent of the honesty of Nahki. But deep down, are we really surprised? Probably not, because unfortunately there seems to be one person in question who's quite high up at the club that is obviously very involved in these things. Would have loved to have kept Nahki for another year, but I don't think he would have been a regular starter again. No. He would have potentially have been a backup to Reece. You know, it's all very well and good. Yeah, we've got what looks to be a fantastic striker on our hands in Reece, and he's got Championship experience. He knows where the net is, but look at the options of at the moment where we stand. If he gets injured, I know
if he gets done, we're done.
If he gets done, yeah, but we have got various options, but are they good enough, or are any of us hand on heart happy with who would be in line to replace Reece if he got injured for, say, a long amount of time? No. But then you've got to look at the likes of Cornick and Bell. Like what's ahead for us? What's ahead for them? Sorry, for this upcoming season. Are we going to try and look to get rid of them? Are we going to try and get Fally out on loan? Because it seems like Stuart's had a look at him and is kind of, yeah, he's got the talent there, but it's not there yet, and he's still got a lot to work on. But I think we're all just kind of a bit disappointed.
It is high risk. I mean, Paul, Nahki was a high wager, and that contract that he signed 2 or 3 years ago, his second contract, it took him down from the initial wage he joined on. Still a high wager, and he's 35 years old, but very fit. Would you have kept him?
I wouldn't have minded keeping him. I don't think I was desperate to. I think, like you said, Dave, I think it's a bit an element of a hard-nosed business decision. We've got 5 strikers. Whatever we think of them and whatever we think of their output, we've got 5, and only one of them is in our hands to left this summer, and that was Nahki Wells. Because as much as we might not, necessarily want to use Cornick and Bell and Fally, they're still our players, and we still have to pay them. So I think there's an element of that comes into it. I suspect there's definitely an element where we're still looking to maybe move at least 2 of those on, and maybe then bring someone else in. Yeah. At which point, do you want to have offered Nahki a contract early on if you've got 2 then forwards in front of him playing this role? But we don't know that element yet. Very disappointing how it was done. Thought it was lovely. He was actually at a game on Saturday. So he said about hanging around Bristol and staying in Bristol. It was nice to see he actually went along and watched on Saturday with his family. And I'm sure we'll see him again down there too. But we have got goals to replace, as Gary said. There's not many in our team who score lots of goals, and he was one of only 2 who showed it last season.
We talk about different departments of the team. Sticking with players that left, Paul, with you, I think there's only 2. There's probably others, so forgive me if I've left those out. But Seb Palmer-Holden, a lot of high hopes for him. He was out on loan all last season. He is a big bloke up front, but he's gone. And Cal Naismith, injury ravaged his whole time here. I wasn't surprised at Naismith going, but maybe Seb, what were your thoughts on that?
Maybe. I haven't seen enough of him, and all you can do is look at his stats and his the information from his loan and where he's gone. And ultimately, he's gone to a League 2 side, which suggests that he was quite some distance away from breaking through anywhere near our team. In which case, I think he's 20, 21 now, maybe. how long do you hold on to these young players we've heard about and we like the idea of, and we like the idea of the odd goal they score on loan when we see video clips, but at some point they've got to be ready to break in. And actually, and again, going back to the current roster, as Gerhard likes to call it, we've got Sinclair, Armstrong and Fally and Bell, who are all young. We've got young strikers there still. So do we want another one in that category of just sitting around the bench, maybe not getting a chance?
I mean, Gary, picking up on Ellie's point, we got strikers. Reece he's got to get between 12 and 15 goals this season. Fact, yeah. But then when you look at Armstrong, Cornick, Bell, and Mayulu, you've got 4 players there that are on varying wages, probably some more than others. But we can't rely on any of them coming in and really making a difference, can we? And then in terms of getting them out, somebody's got to have to want them. And I certainly think in Cornick's case, he's a model professional, so we're told he's putting in the training, but he's just running down what is a very good contract, isn't he?
Yeah, you got to look at it from his point of view. I mean, he's digging in there. I don't think he actually got on the pitch till around about Christmas time. Last season, that must have been pretty soul destroying, but he made a contribution later on. Big season for Sam Bell. I'm sure he wants to play in a more central role. He's never in a month of Sundays is he a wing back. We've seen him play probably better suited playing wide on the left, cutting in on his right foot if he's going to be effective. But yeah, Seb's gone. Again, talking about how long do you wait? I mean, look at Cam Pring. I don't think he got in the first team. I made his debut till he was about 23. So plenty of time for him. But it's all about numbers. And again, going back to Nahki, who do you trust? We've got all those players. We've invested in them. Have to try and get a return on investment if they're not going to be in our team. And they made some big decisions. Can Struber get anything more out of Sinclair Armstrong? We know what he's all about. Can he improve his goal ratio? Well, not based on what we've seen last season, as honest as he is and as hard as he tries. And obviously, Fally was a little bit of a write-off last season. So they've got plenty to prove. They might come back and prove it. I hope they do. I hope they leave us all with egg on our face and show us how good they really are and fulfill their potential. But at the moment, we haven't seen it.
Yeah. Ellie, one player that has come back into the fold, and I don't think he would have done had Liam Manning still been here, and that's Rob Atkinson. It's like having a new signing and a decent one at that, isn't it? I mean, Rob's been out, not seen a shirt in a competitive game for 2.5 years almost. I mean, are you pleased that he's signed, particularly with Pring and McNally both being out?
I was at Sunderland when he did his ACL, and it feels like an absolute lifetime ago that happened. I think that game was such mixed emotions because we got that penalty, but then once that settled, it was kind of like, oh, Atkinson's done his ACL. And as we know, we've had various ACL injuries over the last few years. It's not a quick recovery. And unfortunately, with Rob, there's been setbacks. And last season, he went out on loan to Pompey. And I know a few Pompey fans, and I see it on social media, they absolutely loved him and they wanted him back in a heartbeat at Pompey. So to get that news that he'd signed a new deal, it felt like, and it does still feel like a new sign-in. Like how lovely is it going to see him on that pitch against Charlton? And in his interview, he joked about himself. He said, "I hope you get to see me," because it has been such a long time coming. Seems like he's had a good pre-season. He's looking really calm and steady, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing him because it's just been such a long time coming.
Just as well we have signed him, Paul, or got him to sign a new contract, because with McNally out until Christmas and Cam injured, we've got Knight Labelle on the fringes. But it was good. It was good to get him, and he's at the prime of his career now, isn't he? Really. So if he can stay fit, even in the friendly, I was thinking, don't push yourself too hard. You're thinking, please don't pull up. But great to have him back, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right as well, Dave. I don't think there's any way he would have stayed here if Liam Manning had stayed in charge. I think we were seems like we were pretty well set for Harry Darling, which is obviously Manning's man, and that would have been a replacement there. But I like Rob Atkinson. I think he can play a bit of football as well. He's certainly not just this sort of typical old school, tall, big centre back. He can break into midfield with it, and I think Struber's certainly going to like that. He scores goals, he's a big goal threat as well, and that will help certainly. As you said, we need goals from elsewhere. So him and Dickey and McCrory and the likes of those players are going to need to chip in. We certainly need it for Saturday, don't we? We're a little bit short there with only a couple of injuries, and
fill your boots tight.
We're certainly going to need his physicality. But we missed physicality, didn't we, in those playoff matches? We were very much second best on that side of things.
Across the board because Liam had run. I think one of you said earlier that he ran that squad into the ground basically, and to the exclusion of youth, which we'll come on to later. Gary, would it be fair to say that when Max O'Leary picked up that injury at QPR, he was never really fit for the balance of the season? And if you've got a goalkeeper that is injured, okay, he might be taking painkillers, and I'll ask the same question to Elliot and Paul, but he was a liability. We didn't have the confidence to play Bajic. I'm not saying the end game would have been different because we were pretty much in the playoffs anyway. You know, the fact we only got 5 points in the last 5 games is by the by. You know, we were going to be in the playoffs. Do you think we pushed him too far? And then that leads me on as well to, it's obviously a bad injury, and we're told that he's missing now for 4 months because he fell over on a run when he was in training. Should he have been allowed to go and get his full international cap? So that's a lot of questions there, but it did make a difference to how secure the defence felt, knowing that he was limited mobility.
I think one of the issues there, the fact that he probably played 46 games max without any pressure on him at any time, any clear challenge, was maybe a sign that we're weak in that department. And he made a couple of mistakes, and I know Max really well. I'm always quite honest about him, but I thought he did come back and recover quite well after he made a mistake and he took it on the chin. But yeah, maybe there was times when somebody else needed to come in and play, and running people into the ground. Jason Knight is your prime example. Again, he played every game, every minute of every game, and then went away and played international football during the international breaks. And he was shattered. He was our best player last season by a mile. But that can't happen again. I remember that the game sticks in my mind against Plymouth for 2 reasons. We talked about Rob Atkinson. He'd come back from 2 years out or whatever, and I think we're winning 4-0. And he never got on the pitch. And he never took Jason Knight off. And they're little things that you think it's all well and good. 4-0 up with 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to go, get Knight off and get Atkinson on, and neither happened. And little things like that catch up with you at the end of the season. And that's going to be really important. Ellie said that. We ran out of steam, and we did. And we suffered because of injuries. And we were weak when we played Sheffield United, no doubt about it. And hopefully that's something that we can rectify this season.
Yeah. Ellie, Max, he was carrying that injury, getting that cap. Do you think he wanted the cap? That was quite important to him. He was told he was probably going to get his cap on that end of season, and it's acted to our detriment, I would say.
I mean, a lot of players just play through pain, don't they? Like you guys have just discussed. And we could debate this keeper topic all night. Yes, he wanted his cap. Yes, it probably meant a lot to him, and he got a clean sheet. But then you've got to look more so at the long term as well. I know training injuries are very unfortunate, but if we got told that he was playing through injury prior to that, on top of that, that's a risk. I just want to go back a bit further, guys, as well. More so, when Bentley left, we didn't get we never really replaced him in my eyes. It just Max sort of jumped to number 1. We've always had backup keepers, but is that the club sort of thinking that the keeper position isn't a priority and that we just stick with Max and hope for the best? And I actually think we've been really fortunate for Max not to have got any form of kind of injury within the last couple of years. We've actually been very, very fortunate. And Max has got a mistake in him, and he can be a little bit, oh my God, and hit and miss. But we've been very, very fortunate, more so than anything, that he's not got injured prior to this season at all.
Paul, I mean, the Max injury apart, we've gone from one extreme to the other, haven't we? I mean, we've been out and signed, if Max is number one, and we didn't know 6 weeks ago that he wasn't going to be available for the length of time. Went out and signed Joe Lumley, and he's got a lot of criticism from the fans who haven't even seen him in the flesh yet, because they're all looking at the video of horrors of all his mistakes. But he's come in, Is it Thomas? Is it Lewis Thomas? He signed another contract, which blocks the pathway for the likes of, I gather we got a very promising goalkeeper in, is it Joe Duncan, I think? And then we've just been out and signed, and I'll come to Gary and Ellie about Rajek Vitek, if that's the right pronunciation. We've gone from one extreme to the other with goalkeepers, haven't we, really?
Yeah, we have. I think on Max, just touch, I think there's a lot of amateur physio and doctor work going on here amongst the fan base. I find it hard to believe that the Bristol City physio and the Ireland physio would have signed him off to play if he wasn't feeling fit and got through fitness tests. And we've been told he's been out for a run and done his ankle. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a repeat of the same injury. No one has said that. I think there's a lot of fans putting two and two together and assuming that it's the same injury. So, but yeah, on keepers, I think, Bajic was just a backup, wasn't he? I think, we didn't bring him into a club thinking, oh, he's not very good, but he'll be right for number two. We brought him in thinking he's a young prospect who can hopefully develop and challenge. He hasn't. That happens, doesn't it? You can't sign brilliantly every single time. I think the other factor, of course, Lewis Thomas, I kind of think is a bit of a, I don't know, red herring almost. That sounds really horrible to him, but he doesn't seem like he's ever going to get involved. We've shown that by going out and getting a loan signing now. I don't know if he's involved in the coaching side or if he's just a really good character. I don't know what it is, but he's obviously on a very, very low wage, you'd suspect, and is probably not really one for the picture. The other factor, of course, is Max is out of contract next summer. So, there's a factor, but we certainly wouldn't want to be coming back in December, January, maybe then leaving because we got a little offer and not having anyone in place to come in. So I think there's probably a big element of that in VTech signing in terms of let's get him for the season, probably have him as number one, probably even when Max is back. Does that give us scope then to go and get 300 grand for Max O'Leary in January and make some money on him? Maybe, I don't know, but that is a factor, obviously.
Gary, how do you think Joe Lumley's feeling? Because he has played 150 games at championship level, so ignore the videos, he's a competent keeper, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it shows that if Max was fit, he would have been number one and started as number one. My personal view when Vitek come is you don't come from Manchester United, with all respect, to get to sit on the bench in the Championship. And I won't say Bristol City, but I'll say you don't leave Man United to go on loan to do nothing. You're going to get an opportunity to play. So in my eyes, the minute he's signed, he's clearly going to be the number one. So the big situation that Struber will have to manage is when all three at some point in the future are fit. And we've then got three goalkeepers who want to play every week. Yeah,
and I say the pathway is blocked. I mean, I saw the game at the weekend, and Vitek is a big lad. I mean, City fans. I think I'm the oldest of everybody here, but you go back. I mean, Mike Gibson was quite a little short ass back in the day, and Ray Cashley. And I'd say that to his face because I know Mike. Ray Cashley wasn't exactly massive, but those of you can remember back in 1980, Bob Houghton, when he was manager, 1980, he signed Jan Moller, who was a big goalkeeper. And the only other really big goalkeepers that I can think in my 50-odd years of supporting City was Billy Mercer, who picked up a nasty groin injury. We won't go into the details of that, but he was a big lad. And then the other one was obviously Steve Dykstra, who had one of those 1970s US sitcom hairstyles and Zapata moustache, and I can remember seeing him a game away at York behind the goal, and everybody was chanting "Seeb," but the other chant he was getting was "porno." I don't know why, but that's what they used to say about Dykstra. He was a bit of a player.
I wonder if that was a game Lewis Carey made his debut in.
It was the game when Lewis Carey made his debut, and whilst I can't remember what happened 2 weeks ago, I can remember it was November '94. And I was at that game, but a long time ago.
Was that?
Absolutely, and you were playing, Gary, I guess. Yeah. Booth and Crescent, what a dump. Other players that are coming in, Ellie, Randall. I thought as soon as we signed him, that was getting our replacement in for Jason Knight early doors. But the two of them are busy bees, to use a Lee Johnson phrase, in the middle of the park. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Randall? What you've heard or read? Plymouth fans seem sorry that he went, and he'd been there since he was a kid.
Yeah, they seem like a good partnership so far. Like you said, busy bees in the middle, and if they can link up well. They've had a good pre-season together in that sort of two pairing in the middle, because obviously we've got to take into account who's currently injured as well, with the likes of Bird and Williams. Bird isn't back fit yet, and neither's Williams. So obviously I think for the time being they will be the sort of central midfield too. But I think it's nice to have squad rotation as well. It's nice to have the options. I'm interested to see. I haven't really seen much of him yet, to be honest, at the moment. But I'm interested to see what kind of player he is, what his style is. Is he quick moving like Jason is, or is he sort of a more composed like Max Bird? So I don't think his fee was that much either, was it, Randall? So I think
probably less, about $750,000 is a
yeah,
figure.
So not a big fee, and a position that we are pretty stacked in the middle now. I'd say our midfield is looking strong, is looking stacked. We've got options, in case we need to sort of do one in, one out rotation, etc. But I think, obviously we're all delighted that we've not lost Jason Knight yet. He's still contracted for another 2 years at the moment.
Yes, being the operative word. I mean, Paul, do you share my cynicism that, I mean, people have said that the only thing that's missing from Jason Knight's game is maybe a few goals. But if you look at all the metrics, I think across Europe, and Ellie's already alluded to the fact he played every minute of every game. His stats are amazing. Did you think, like I did when Randall came in very early, that, and what I've seen of him so far, they look similar?
There's a lot of similarities for sure. I think now the time's passed. It clearly wasn't the plan. I think you're right. If he'd gone within a couple of weeks after that, you kind of think, yeah, maybe. But we obviously haven't. It doesn't look like we're in any real conversation around bids or anything for Jason Knight. I think it was a great opportunist pickup. We obviously been watching him and knew he was available for a decent fee from a relegated club, and I like that way of doing work, a bit like we did with Jason and Max Bird, and people we knew would be available from relegated clubs. But he is also, yes, he's a nice next in line replacement if, as and when Jason Knight does go, whether that's hopefully not this month, really hope not, whether that's January, whether that's next summer or whenever. But we're really strong in that area now. I can't really remember us being that strong at this level.
It depends.
Possibly in my lifetime in that sense.
If you look at it, this Saturday we're going to be without through injury. Fact. First choice players. Max O'Leary, he'd be a starter. Yeah, I know we got Vitek now, but Max probably would have kept the shirt. Campring, McNally, who really can play on the right. He only played on the left out of necessity, so I'm told. I thought he was left-footed. He looked so natural there. Who else is out injured? Max would be in the starting lineup for most people. But Max
Williams.
Joe
Williams.
Dickie's out suspended as well. I mean, Gary, we have got an embarrassment of riches. We've not even, because what constitutes midfield, because we've not even talked about Stokes, who's back, who had that very useful loan at Cambridge, and Adam Murphy, very high wage for a youngster that's not kicked a ball in anger, although he did play a few minutes against the Spaniards at the weekend.
I think we'd be, if everyone's fit, we're strong throughout. Defensively, we're as strong as anything. I think Randall's an absolutely brilliant signing. I've been watching his stuff, box to box, will help out the defenders, will support from deep. He can hit that last pass. He can score from set plays. I'm really looking forward to watching him play. A little bit similar tonight, and you might look at them and think, oh, they're a little bit down in terms of height, but Jason Knight is as good as anyone I've seen in the air. So we can be really dynamic in that part of the pitch. And I think when it comes down to it, I think we can be really strong at set plays. That's something I would chuck in. I think we can do really well and win games with set plays. And again, where we started, it might come down to if Reece can get 10 or 15, who's going to score the rest of the goals. We've really done well sharing the goals round last season, I have to say. But it'd be great if we thought that we had sort of two main strikers that were definitely going to hit double figures.
Yeah, and Struber, we're told he likes to play with two strikers. And what is a striker? Because if you look at the team that played against the Spanish guys, I mean, you've got Reece up there, Twine and Mehmeti. They're not players that naturally play alongside a big man, are they?
No, I mean, the thing that's picked up, if you're going to move the ball forward quicker, and it wasn't just crashed forward, seen Zach Finer hit a couple of lovely passes through the inside channels into Scott Twine. And if you move the ball forward, Scott Twine might find a little bit more space, because often last season with the slow, impatient build-up that was seen, by the time the ball was played into those attacking areas, lots of players were behind the ball, and it was very, very difficult to find any space. So hopefully he might be a player that flourishes as well.
Yeah.
I think as well, Gary, I noticed we seem to be pushing the wing backs higher already. And that, again, you're getting 4 or 5 players in that position when the ball gets up there, aren't you, rather than having them too far away from that set striker.
You know, we were used to the ball sort of being played forward and then coming back around the defence and out the other side. And that just kills your space sometime. And, you know, there was games, I think, was at the Hull game, where they got men behind the ball and we couldn't break them down. Yeah. So let's see. It's all.
It is early days, and that was the one thing that I noticed, because seeing it in the flesh is obviously very different to watch it on TV. We seem to be getting the ball down to the channels directly, and whilst it might not always come off, right, a couple of times the real valid defenders were putting it into touch because there was players bearing down on them. And under Manning ball, as you alluded to then, Gary, this sort of playing it back and the horseshoe style, as we've been calling it, you give the opposition the chance to reset, and then invariably you play a long ball and you surrender possession that way. But, I mean, Ellie, let's continue with new players that have come in. Reece, he's just what we need, but I mean, we got him for cheap, but a championship striker to go alongside him so that we would say we've got 2 good championship strikers, not one. It's going to cost you Tommy Conway type money, isn't it? 5 million. And imagine Tommy Conway alongside Reece. You know, that would have been a very powerful combination. But do we need to go out and spend or get a loan in a youngster if we can get rid of the wages of some of these fringe players?
Well, yeah, but that goes back to what we were talking about with the likes of Sam Bell, Cornick, who probably aren't going to be as close to the first team. We'd all love an extra forward to play alongside Reece, or a different kind of striker. He's more physical, he's more tall, and I think that goal he scored, his first goal at Plymouth, shows the kind of finisher he is, the kind of striker he's going to be. But we're pretty stacked in that area at the moment. But I think certain players have got a lot of points to prove. Someone's just said on the text comment there they don't see Sam Bell as a striker. So I really hope that the likes of Sam Bell do have a good season if and when they are given that opportunity. But I think every striker who's down the pecking order has got to take their chance when they get it. We heard Manning say that about the likes of Armstrong and Mayulu last season, and that's going to come into place now under Struber.
I mean, Paul Ellis used the term, and we've used it in defence and in midfield. I know we've got injuries in those areas where we're stacked, but it's still pretty strong. We've got quantity, but not quality up front, really, haven't we? And and we berate the transfer policy, but when you look at some of the players under the current regime that have come in, you're going to get some duffers, and clearly the duffers have ended up being, no disrespect to them, but it is what it is. The duffers are Mayulu and Armstrong. That's money down the drain because they're not ready. The new manager said that about Mayulu and Sinclair Armstrong. Yeah, he's powerful. Struber's style might suit him, but how do we address the quality over quantity over quality bit? Because something needs to happen in that area, or we are very exposed. I mean, what's his name? Reece. He has had an ACL. Preston fans said that slowed him down compared to what he was like at his best. How would you address the How would you address the problem?
Well, I think ideally you'd probably move 3 on and get 1 in that position. Whether that's a loans or sales. But what I would say is I think some of these players will be naturally better if they're playing alongside a striker. I mean, Sam Bell is not a wing back. If he's playing alongside a big striker, I think you'd see a different sort of player. And I think you would in Harry Cornick. I'm not sure he's going to get used. And it might actually help someone like Sinclair Armstrong as well, just to have someone else to run off and not be the target, not be the one who's being... If we're playing that ball into the channel like we talked about on Saturday, I mean, Armstrong's perfect for running onto that and getting onto it with his pace wide. So I think there's options there. We're not going to be so fixed of just having the one up front as I think we did for every minute of last season. That 2 and a 1 on Saturday might become a 1 and a 2 at times. That opens a door to someone like a Bell or an Armstrong to come alongside. But yes, I think there's no doubt. Ideally, we'd all like another good quality Championship striker, but it's tricky because I guess it's the issue in a way that Manning had. If you're only going to play 1 up front and we've already got 2 or 3 of them, you can't go and spend another 4 or 5 million on
because
another
then
one.
If you pick another one, you've got to take somebody out of the middle, haven't you? Because you could argue that on Saturday we played, and it is you can't say it is about formations. There's so many different ones, but on Saturday we almost played like a 3-4-3, didn't we? Yeah. And if you play Sam Bell and you say you're a second striker, who do you leave out of Twine or Mehmeti? We'll come and talk about what the...
It's probably an option, isn't it? Yeah, you can take someone off on an hour, can't you, and bring Bell on then if you push for a goal, which we never did last year when we needed it. Use them and, 60th minute and all of that. Gary, would you rule out them getting... If they could get rid of some of the wages, let's say they get rid of 3 of those 4, yeah? 2 of those 4. Yeah, let's say somebody takes Cornick, although wages are going to be a barrier to lower league clubs there. But let's say Mayulu goes and Sam goes on loan to somebody like Cheltenham or something like that. Would you, in the same way you've bought in a Vitek for goal, would you take a Premier League striker on loan? He might not be as prolific as Tammy was, but just to give us a bit of extra cover up there. There was a Liverpool player mentioned the other day, although I think he might have been a winger. God knows why we need one of those.
I think he can only come from the Premier League if he's going to be a young loan. And it'll still be a hefty loan fee if he's come from anywhere else, i.e. a Championship club. If he comes in before anyone leaves, or hypothetically, that'll be a massive headache, I think, for Struber, because that would really upset the apple cart. It's really going to put 1 or 2 players' noses out of place, if you like, because everybody wants to play. So I think there will be movement. I can see a couple going out on loan, and again, it's about making sure you've got the right cover with what you leave behind, and they're the players that are under contract or the players that you bring in. And I mean, just there's a message in there about players improve. You like to think that players can improve, especially young players, but that takes a lot of hard work and dedication. I remember when I was coaching down at Bristol City a few years ago, Yannick
Balassi.
Yeah, and I'm not going to forget his name. Our Albert Adoma worked harder than anybody else I've ever seen. doing extra training, practicing finishing, side foot finishing, and they both reap the rewards. So it can be done.
Yeah. Ellie, if you look at the pathway, there was a lot of criticism for Manning, and Red Oxo asked the question on OTIP for us to ask. 24-25 pathway was blocked. Are there any academy graduates that you'd like to see break through this season, or is the crop of under 21s, is that sort of almost decimated and we're looking at the next age group down? But who are you looking to see break into the team that wasn't allowed minutes last season or given the chance?
Well, we spoke off air, Dave, didn't we, just before we went on? I think Morrison, more so than anyone. I think everybody was kind of rooting for him last season, and I don't think he got any more than kind of 3 sub appearances from Manning. So is that a case of that he's still quite not ready? Is that a case of, too much too soon? But but then if you're only going to get cameo appearances, that's all us as a fan base can base it on. When I thought he was excellent when he came on against Leeds.
Yeah.
But that's only 20 minutes of
I know.
a very short time scale. So, but there's a whole sort of round look. I like the fact that Stuber is giving Yeboah game time.
He's come back from the land of the vanquished, hasn't he?
Who knows? Things change quickly, and we all hope for the better, that things improve with certain players that aren't quite there yet.
Yeah.
But then back to my point about getting more minutes, etc. Yeboah went out on loan to Doncaster, and their manager didn't think much of him. I think it was Doncaster. Their manager didn't think highly of him at all. So
he had 2 awful loan periods. You're right, Ellie. He was awful.
Yeah. So I like the fact that I think this pre-season's been really balanced. I think Stuber's not just necessarily focusing on our strongest XI. He's really having a look at everybody.
Yeah.
Just because certain players are getting minutes in pre-season, it might not mean that they're going to be anywhere near the first team. But I really like the fact that he's looking at everybody at the moment.
He's got an open-minded approach.
As every kind of new manager should do. But I think we've had like a good pre-season. I think there's been a real mix, and it's nice to see that the youngsters are getting minutes. But I would like, back to your original question, I would like to see more of Elijah this season.
Yeah. And Elijah, case in point, Paul, I mean, he had a few minutes. He scored the winning goal, I think, against Newport. But he was on the bench so much last season. He's probably got splinters in his backside. The manager's not used him. I thought he might have got minutes. He said, you were at the podcasters meet with Gerhard. He says he doesn't like to play square pegs in round holes, yet he's more than likely, we'll talk about team selection on Saturday, but he's more than likely going to start Ross McCrory on the left, which is Morrison's preferred position. Do you think Morrison would benefit from a season out on loan, or do you think we're going to keep him because of that injury to Cam at the moment?
I think that's most likely, to be honest. I mean, you hear a played on Saturday to start, of course, not even Ross McCrory. So he clearly doesn't feel he's quite ready yet, and maybe he's not. I mean, we don't really know, do we? We saw so few minutes of him. We can have a little cameo, but we don't really know. So I can see a signing, a loan move for him. Certainly, I think that might be sensible for him. We have got Campering when he's back. We've got McCrory who can switch. I wouldn't be surprised to see us come in for a left-sided wing back. I think it's an area we might need if we're playing McCrory and you there, two both slightly out of position. Pring probably has some question marks around his attacking ability in a genuine sort of 3-4-3 type formation. What I think the area of concern for me was with the youngsters is the defenders, because we are pretty well stacked at centre back, and it's not a position you generally mess around with. You don't often rest them and switch them around. So if you've got Viner, McNally later in the season, Dickey, Atkinson, maybe even Pring back, there's not much space for the 2 younger lads around. So I could see maybe them, certainly in January when McNally's back, moving out on loan as well, potentially. But it's exciting to see Yeboah. I mean, he had a dreadful year last year, but he's got something. And I really like the 4th goal on Saturday. I thought Sinclair Armstrong and Yeboah, who are both probably nowhere near anyone's thoughts really for this season. I mean, Sinks chased that ball into the corner, took a quick throw, got it to your bow, got it straight across, and it's just the directness of it I really liked, and that's what those two can offer probably, but other players
Gary,
can't.
Nigel gave Yeboah his chance, and Matt Manning certainly exited him, and Yeboah, he has come back from nowhere really and featured. He looks as though he's, I don't know if you were at the game on Saturday, but he looks like he's bulked up a bit. That is a bit of a bonus, him coming back, isn't it? And staking a claim.
Yeah, Nigel put great faith in him. I always thought he was a little bit raw and unpredictable, but he had terrific pace, and that's all was an asset. I agree with Ellie. I'd like to see Elijah Morrison feature more because he needs first team football now. If he's going to develop for his own sake, he won't want to hang around and not play any part of anything in City's team this year. And as far as the young lads go, I think the biggest disappointment for me after all the talk of recent years is that we had a team a couple of seasons ago that got the semi-final of the FA Youth Cup, and none of them players have come through or got anywhere near it, and that's been a massive disappointment.
Good to see Ralph Arroyo come back from nowhere, because he looked like he was going out through the door.
Yeah, I mean, the manager's got to put them in at the end of the day, and I think I've heard a quote around, we'll put them in, but they've got to offer something. And that's right. You get in as a young lad, and you always get the backing of the home fans. It's always great for the fans to have a local lad or a young lad in the side. But you've got to be in there sort of doing the business, if you like. And that's the pressure that comes with it. But at some point, somebody's got to be brave enough to give them that opportunity. And if you don't get the opportunity, then we'll never know, will we?
No. One player that we haven't mentioned his name so far, who could be out the door, and he is left-sided, Hayden Roberts. Quick yes/no answer. You first, Ellie. Do you think Hayden Roberts will be a Bristol City player by the end of the transfer window?
No, I think he'll go to League One.
Paul? No? Yeah. Gary?
No.
This is going to be a similar one to last season. We let the two centre-halves go, and it turned out not to be a good decision. And if Cam Pring is injured, who's naturally left-footed, and Hayden Roberts is naturally left-footed, I wouldn't be in a hurry to kick him out the door until everybody's fit.
All right, but then if Struber wanted to bring in, there's been a couple of players mentioned, Struber knows, it creates some wiggle room, doesn't it, if he goes?
Yeah, of course. There'll be.
But you're right. I mean, we're weak.
And I'm sure
we're weak on that left side. I mean, I thought you and Mehmeti played well on the left side against the Spaniards, but I God help us against Sheffield United if those two line up and they play anything like Sheffield can do, although maybe they're causing enough problems. Interestingly, somebody said to me that you plays on the left side for the Japanese national team. So whether that's
I always think you want a little at this level. You should have some natural cover. You shouldn't necessarily have to play players out of position. Not saying that if he plays there for the international team, then great.
Player that was a cause of much chat last season. He cost us a fortune, certainly a fortune for Bristol City. Scott Twine. Ellie, he's got his little free kick routines. He had a good one at the weekend. He set up one of the goals. He was a bit lively. He's got to start producing the goods, Scott, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's our star boy and he's our 10. It seemed everybody was delighted when he got here, but I was pretty disappointed overall with his all-round game last season. You want more from your 10 than just free kicks. I'd like to see him more involved in play, in getting involved, and hopefully a little bit less play acting next season.
Okay, Paul, I think were you at the game on Saturday, Paul? You weren't. I mean, there was one. I'll get back to the question, and I'll make a point about Twiney. He's got to produce something this season because he had the loan period when he was injured. Then he was injured for bits of last season. Yes, his free kicks at the turn of the year. I know he scored a couple that acted as the impetus for the run of home games that put us into the playoffs. But he's got to deliver, as Ellie said. He's our star boy. He's got to be doing the business, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I suspect he might have been a bit disappointed with last season, how it ended up, especially with the injuries, and then not really being first choice towards the end of the season. I don't. Again, was he being held back through a little bit of an injury, a little bit of a knock? Maybe a little bit of that. But equally, when he has played, he hasn't exactly forced himself onto the team sheet. He's not guaranteed first choice, which you feel he should be at that sort of value. Yeah, the value's not his fault. It's not his fault what we paid for him, but you'd expect that sort of player to come in and be one of your star men, and he was okay, but he wasn't really. Again, playing differently, as you said just now, it might suit him. Yeah, we bought him to play centrally, and then played him out on left for the first 6 or 7 games, and then he had an injury, and then so he was messed around a little bit last season as well, but he didn't force himself on the games enough for me when he was actually playing, and certain games where we really needed him to do that job we brought him in for and break teams down, he just didn't seem able to do that.
Gary, do you share the somewhat jaundiced mixed view that the three of us have about him? Is that price tag around his neck? Because at that money for Bristol City, we expect more, whereas that's petty cash to what Mr. Manning's spending up at Norwich at the moment. I didn't see him beating a path to our door, trying to re-sign him for them, because he was such an important part of his playing ethos.
Yeah, I think he was certainly one of Liam Manning's favourites. He always talked him up. I hope there's more to come from him. I've got to be honest. We've seen moments of magic, probably that not many players can deliver. And I'm talking about the free kicks. There's another side to him, of course. He gets into trouble with referees, which is often frustrating to watch. And I don't think that helps his game. It looks like it distracts him at times. He gets really caught up emotionally. But maybe City move the ball a little bit quicker, and he plays, you're quite right, a little bit more narrow, and he can get round reset. And I think that'll be important, because I think he can be the focal point reset, and we'll see him hold the ball up a lot more than what Sinclair did, who was often running away from the ball. And I think he'll create opportunities for Scott Twine.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Another enigma, Ellie, and come to each of you on the same player, Anis Mehmeti. One of many that are out of contract next summer. 12 goals last season, but hardly featured. And there's talk of him not signing a contract. Now, whether that's his agent, but do you think he's hedging his bets, waiting to see if he's loved a bit? Because he is a mercurial player that when he's good, he's fabulous. But when he's not good at all.
It's probably just biding his time at the moment. We've had a managerial change over the summer, and he's going to be thinking, am I going to be a regular starter? From a personal point of view, obviously he's going to be wanting goals and assists, but from a City point of view, it's okay, Anis, like you're in your final year. We don't want another Famara situation. We don't want any player to run down their contract, but he needs a good start. I think he's had a good pre-season so far. I think he's linking up well with the other sort of forward players and the likes of Twine. But it's going to be interesting, because we don't want anyone at the club that doesn't want to be here or is looking for more money or a better option. So interesting, because it's bigger picture of that. We've actually got a lot of starters in that 11 that are out of contract. June.
I mean, that's a whole new passport, a whole new episode as to why that's been allowed to happen. Paul, we said before, you were at the meeting that we had with Gerhard, which was good. He comes, as you said earlier, he's a nice bloke. He's totally different, more extrovert than we've had in managers for a long time. He likes Anis Mehmeti, doesn't he? He said as much, and I think he was the quickest on the boot test, or whatever they call it. But he talked about Manning's intelligence and thinking about the game, didn't he? So I don't think he's going to be, if he's playing well, he's going to be a first choice selection. Would you say so, Paul, based on the perceptions of what Struber said?
Mehmeti's but he's probably our biggest goal threat in a weird way. Yeah, he showed that last season. He can be so frustrating and so disappointing at times, but he was top scorer with maybe 2/3 of the season appearances. I don't know, maybe no more than that. I think he's got huge potential, but I also think there's a very decent chance still he'll get sold before the summer, because at some point in that last week in August, there's going to be Championship clubs scrambling around for someone just to add a little bit of flair and goal. Someone who doesn't start as well, you know, and he's out of contract next summer. So we would. There's no way we're going to be saying he's not for sale, because he's going to have a price, especially at being out of contract. But I think he'd be a big miss, because I think he has an awful lot of.
But what is a price? Because 12 goals last season. I know they were all in the first 2/3 of the season, but and now is the right time to sell. If you do sell, what's a fair? How much would you pay for a guy that scored 12 goals in the Championship? Because we won't get that, because the numbers that are being mentioned.
No, I think other clubs would be probably looking around 3.5-4 million maybe, at that sort of level, for a guy who's going to score 12, 15 goals and has got skills and excitement and pace. And it was stamina, wasn't it? That test he talked about, Dave. It wasn't even just his pace. It was, he said he's quick and he's the fittest. He couldn't quite believe it too, because normally quicker players tend to be a little bit, take a bit of recovery and go again. But he couldn't believe how quick and fit he was.
Gary, Mehmeti, that seems a very quite a nice figure if we get it. If somebody offered us 3.5 million for Anis, you bite their hands off, because equally, if you're the owner of the club that puts that in, you say, well, hang on a minute, we can have him for next to nothing in 12 months' time. So let's wait and see. What are your thoughts on Mehmeti?
I thought he started really well first half of the season, then sort of fell out the team. Second half of the season, whether he come off it or he was out of favour, but I think we've been through it enough times now to have learnt our lesson with players that are out of contract, and you've got to make a big decision. And sometimes that decision is sell. Ellie said Famara, even to some extent Alex Scott, and Tommy Conway for sure. And you shouldn't always have to get to the point where you fall out with players when they're leaving just because they want to move on. I think you should be able to do it professionally. And if you've said that we've got 10 or 11 players out of contract in the year's time, this could be a really big season off the pitch.
Yeah.
And come, the transfer window in January, then that could have to be some massive decisions.
I mean, I think the thing is, if you're out of contract, this is just my view, and I never obviously played the game, but if you're out of contract and you want to get the best possible deal for yourself in the summer, you're going to play your heart out even more, right? Which should benefit the team. But equally, if you're Bristol City and the jungle drums are beating now about, why have we got all these players out of contract? We should be saying now we have offered terms to all of these players. Now, some of them we're not going to offer them to, like Cornick and people like that. But we're not helping ourselves sometimes with the communication of what's going on behind the scenes, are we?
Listen, if you want the players, commit to them, and they'll either commit to you back and the contract will get signed, or they won't commit to you back, and then that should plant a seed in your mind about making a decision, which is pretty straightforward after that, I think. And players do leave. And, the thing that sticks in my mind always, and probably even more now, is we went through the situation with Tommy Conway, who got ostracised by a manager who jumped in his car and driven down the road from Oxford after one phone call, and has done exactly the same and gone somewhere else. So managers and coaches have got every right to be ambitious, and so have players.
Yeah,
and it's a short career, and if they think they can get a better deal somewhere else and they don't want to commit, good luck to them. If they get a good deal and something that they want to commit to, then good luck to them as well.
Paul, you were going to say there, you were going to add something.
Yeah, I think it's only 4 of our main core squad that's out of contract next summer. There's a few on with fringes like Cornick and I think Bell. There's a couple in Dickey and someone else who got on a year option that we've got. So I think it's only Max, Viner, Mehmeti, and Sykes.
Well, Sykes is an interesting one, isn't he? Because the club have exercised the option on him on their side, which is a low wage option relative to certain other players of lesser experience. And you could. Sykes is. I mean, Ellie, do you think Sykes is a valuable member of the squad based on when he's fit, which is most of the time?
Oh, absolutely. When he's fit, yeah, I think he's the best crosser at the club, but is he going to be thinking, how many minutes am I going to get? And can I get a better offer elsewhere? Or ultimately, do I want a new challenge?
Mm. Mm. And another one that has already been linked, again, probably press talk, who's out of contract in the summer, is Zach Viner. I mean, Gary, he's sort of, his availability is 100%, and Paul was there. Struber spoke very well of Zach, but you know, if Derby were linked, if Derby come in and offer 1.5 million for Zach, you don't want to be left light at the back. But you know, do we take 1.5 million now, or 1 million in January if we're mid-table mediocrity? What do we do with Zach?
Well, not for 1.5 million if they want, but if I was Zach, I know what I'd be doing, because I wouldn't be in a hurry to move to Derby County from Bristol City. But let's see. He's been here a long time. I like him. I think he's consistent. He'd be a player that I keep. I think he's versatile. I think he can play in other positions. And same with Mark Sykes. I think he was excellent at the back end of the season, one of our better players. In fact, technically he's very good. He can create. I think he can score goals. But again, this is all our opinion. We like certain players, and the important people are the people at the club who they've got to make big decisions.
Yeah, no, they have. And it was good to see that the club has reverted to a more conventional model now, with Tom Rawcliffe's appointment as chief executive and technical director reporting in to him. I think I'm right in saying that, Paul. Who does Gerhard report into? Does he report into the chief executive as well? So it's a more conventional structure, isn't it? With John as chairman of the football club, Tom as chief exec, technical director, and the chief coach, both reporting up like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's 100% clear, is it? I suspect it's still into Brian at the moment, who is, I think we said, transitioning across probably to Tom's role. To reporting into Tom, but you know, Tom Rawcliffe, he's honest enough. He said he's not a football man; he's a numbers and businessman. So yeah, you don't want Gerhard Struber pulling him aside for a coffee and talking tactics. And I think he made that point fairly clearly. And John has as well in many interviews. John said, as much as he's a football fan,
he's like us.
He's not going to sit with a manager and discuss. Yeah, exactly. I think going back to his players, I'd be very surprised if all four are still here on September 1st. And Max is injured, so that's, I think, somewhere the club's going to have to try and make some money.
Because although we won't know for sure, but come the turn of the year, we know we'll have made between 15 and 18 million pound loss for the year ending June. All right, let's look forward to Saturday. I mean, couldn't have wished for a better opponents, I suppose. You know, it's sort of like the trilogy. It's a bit like Lord of the Rings or something like that. Up to Bramall Lane. We just didn't show up in, would it have been different if Dickey hadn't got sent off against Sheffield United? I don't know. Would it have been different if we'd have played Sunderland in the semi-final rather than Sheffield? And all conjecture. I mean, this is looking at our team. This is it's pretty obvious that I'm going to get this 90% right. In goal is going to be Vitek, without question. I think he's going to start with the defence that sort of finish. I think it's going to read across the back. Sykes, Tanner, Viner, Atkinson, and McCrory on the left. That's the only change from the starting lineup against Plymouth. Knight and Randall in the middle, and then Twine, Mehmeti, and Reese up front. I don't see any other change other than and then on the bench, a very strong bench, even allowing for the injuries that we've got at the moment. Ellie, is that how you see us lining up? He's not going to risk you in a cauldron that will be Bramall Lane opening day.
Yeah, I think it'll be. From both sides, it'll be completely different to how we were up there in May. We both had managerial changes, but in terms of the squad, I don't see him making many changes. I think he might have. I think he's funny in East Struber. He sort of said, "Oh, that might not be our starting 11," but pretty much I think it is nailed on, bar maybe one or two changes from the team that started against. I'm not even going to try to pronounce their name. The Spanish team.
The V is pronounced as a B. So Dave Tovey told me, who knows his Spanish, it's real. It was real Balari or something like that. But yeah, I just called him. That's why I called them the Spaniards. But there we go. Paul, is that team? Is that what you'd expect it to be?
Yeah, I think the only real question is you versus Sykes, I'd say, and then with you switch across. I can't see him changing anything else, to be honest, in that sense. I'd be surprised. But I think on Saturday, what we've got to remember is Sheffield United are probably the most depressed team in the league at being at this level because they missed out on that playoff final at Wembley. And they've lost a couple of key players since, 2 or 3 key players. So there's a real opportunity to go and take advantage of that hangover. I mean, you often hear it talked about a hangover at playoff final. We'll obviously might have a hangover from semi-final, but we've probably feel a bit refreshed and, new manager and new ideas coming in. They haven't got that. They've just lost 2 or 3 players. The crowd will be a little bit probably fed up at seeing us back up there again, having, played us last time. And you might just find there's a little bit of a flat atmosphere up there. And hopefully it would have undoubtedly been different if Dickie hadn't been sent off. I'm not saying we'd have won, but we wouldn't have lost 6-0. We can go and get an early goal, and it would really, put the cat amongst the pigeons up there, and could lead to a positive result for us.
You're so optimistic, Paul. I mean, my view on it is if we come back with anything, and by anything, I mean if we put in a good fight and lost 2-1 or 1-0, a 1-1 draw would be absolutely fantastic. I remember 11 years ago, goodness, we went up there on the opening day of what was the promotion season, and what was it? Goals from Aaron Wilbraham and Wade Elliott, and we pulled off a stunning win that set the platform for that season. Gary, you're going to the game with Radio Bristol. Paul's quite optimistic. Do you think, though, that they will be flat?
I don't think so. I think Ellie said everybody puts that to bed. It's different circumstances. Who would have thought between the last game of the season and then the first game of the season that they'd actually be playing each other again, with different players and different managers. So totally different outlook on the game. I'm optimistic. I think we can get off to a good start. It won't be easy. And I think every football fan all over the country is always excited on the first day of the season, especially. And that's why the atmosphere won't be flat.
Okay.
And I think as far as the team goes, you've probably got at least 10 out of 11 correct there. So maybe just one position that might change, maybe not.
And obviously with the number of substitutes, I mean, we have got strength in depth. Okay, what does success look like this season, Ellie? I mean, I said last season was a fluke, and I'm not alone in saying that. Some people are saying it's a bit harsh, but 68 points typically gets you between 8th and 11th. Yeah, I said to Gerhard, well, I think I said it to Tom, we could have an 8% improvement in points and go from 68 to 73 and finish 8th. Just the way it crumbles. And I think the reason why 68 did it was because the top 4 took so many points off everybody else. That's my view. So I'm being a bit harsh. What is success for you this season?
I do think the league's going to be tougher this upcoming season. I think there's some big teams that have come up with Birmingham, Wrexham, and then you've got your Ipswich and your Southamptons that have come down. I'm seeing a lot of people that are predicting their 24 standings already, and it seems that Ipswich and Leicester people think they're going to be the runaway top 2 again. We've said Norwich have spent some money, Birmingham have spent some money. I keep saying I can't believe Charlton have spent 10 million alone. So I do think it's going to be a lot tougher, but I think we're looking strong. We're optimistic. I'd be happy to see us pushing for top 10. I don't think we'll be quite challenging top 6 this season, because I think there are just teams that are better than us that have got, spent a bit more money, etc. But I would see a successful season as pushing top 10. I'd be happy with that.
Okay, Paul?
I think success, probably not. I think bearing in mind we finished top 6 last season, I think personally, the only way you could say it's been successful is if we finish top 6 again. I think it can still be a decent season and finish top 10. There's a lot of mid-table teams spending money as well. I mean, Millwall have spent a lot of money on a striker. Stoke are splashing money out. Norwich, obviously, they've lost a couple. But they're all trying to catch us up, remember. I think we've got to be a little bit more bullish on where we actually did finish last season. We were beating these teams throughout the spring. So they're all spending money to catch us up. We've done a little bit of ourselves. We're not spending as much this summer. But I think a top 10, I think we're a top 10 side. I was confident about the start of last season. We outdid expectations. But I think a top 10 again would be a decent level. I've got no concerns at all. Again, we're going to be anywhere near
Scrap.
being involved in a bottom 8, bottom 10 position. So, and that's still quite a nice position to be in. Having seen what we've done over the last 20
Gary,
or so years.
Ellie, and Paul have said other clubs have been splashing the cash, and they're not allegedly as well funded as we are. What does success look like to you? They both said top 10, which could be the same number of points as we got last season. That in itself would be an achievement. That was 6 more than the season before. But what does it look like to you?
Well, success is finishing in a playoff position, clearly, and we've had that. And I'd just say, what does 10th or 11th look like now to City fans who've had that little bit of success and are hungry for more? So, we want more of the same, please. It's very competitive, very open league. I'd be surprised if anybody really runs away with it, or the two teams, would they get 100 points last season? I'm not sure that'll happen again this season. So it's all to play for, and I think what you don't do at the start of any season is set the bar too low. So let's aim for those playoff positions and see how we get on.
All right. There's a little question that we did on Saturday, the weekend pod, where we're finished relative to these sides. Ellie, you first. Birmingham, above or below them in the table?
I think they'll be strong this season, so I'm going to unfortunately have to say below. I don't think they'll be as high up as everyone is predicting, and I think they're, as a fan base, you would be. You just, with their ownership and, they've got a lot of money to spend, they would be sort of, backing themselves 100%, but I don't think they'll be quite as good as everybody is saying.
Okay.
I think they'll be pushing top 6, whereas I think we'll be more sort of top 10, I'd say.
Paul, above or below Birmingham?
Above.
Interesting. Gary?
Above.
That's good.
I think it's really difficult just to come into the next level and all of a sudden sort of propel yourself to the top of the league. That takes a lot of doing.
Yeah. I've been watching the Birmingham City documentary that's on Prime called Made in Birmingham. And that Hardy is it Tom Brady, isn't it? Brady. Yeah. You do not warm to Birmingham in the same way that welcome to Wrexham, which brings me on to my next club. Ellie, Wrexham, above or below? They're going to be a team of old age pensioners. I think they're signing their 6th player around about the age of 32. Yeah. Above or below Wrexham?
I think we'll finish above Wrexham.
Paul?
I think they'll be about mid-table.
Yeah, I'd be surprised to see Wrexham finish top half.
Do you think the steam's going to run out, Gary, that we'll finish above them?
100% above Wrexham. Again, like I know Luton come through divisions, other teams have done it, but they've come through really quickly, and they're going to hit it. They're going to level out somewhere, and this might be the season where they just have to consolidate before they kick on again.
All right, I'll just do 3 more, which will be very quick. Next one, Middlesbrough, Ellie, above or below?
I don't really know what kind of window they've had. Obviously, still got Tommy, but I think we'll be sort of neck and neck again. So we'll go optimistic and say we'll finish above Borough this season.
Paul?
Yeah, I think it's a lot tight to that one. But I don't know. I agree with Ellie. I'm not sure because they obviously lost their main striker in January, didn't they? They didn't really replace him and ran out of steam. So I don't know. I'd have to have a look.
All right. Yeah.
Level.
Gary?
I think we'll finish below Middlesbrough. I think their best signing's been the manager. I think they were the club that messed it up more than anybody last season because they got themselves in a really good position and then just blew a gasket. But I think they'll be much improved.
Okay. Penultimate one, Millwall under Alex Neil finished strong, splashed the cash a little bit, I think, this summer.
I think Millwall are going to be up there or abouts this season. This is so hard to say, this game, isn't it? We don't know. It's a guessing game at this stage. It's good to predict, but chances are 1 or 2 are all going to be completely wrong. So round about the same as us, I think. Maybe a little bit higher Millwall, but who knows?
Who knows? Paul?
I go above Millwall. I think sometimes for a club that's not used to spending money doesn't always work because they're used to bringing in a certain type of really hard-working team player, determined player, and maybe they've just got a little ideas about their station and might blow it.
Above Millwall.
All right. I'm not going to include Norwich in this because, I wish Liam every failure because I think I'd like to have seen him stay on and try
You're
and
so
compete.
sentimental.
Final one, the Galacticos of the Championship. Ellie, Preston.
Oh, we'll finish above Preston. We've took their best striker, haven't we? So, yeah, above Preston.
I think they might
Right,
go down.
along with Sheffield Wednesday.
We'll finish above Preston. I'll tell you, I've got a little hunch that one team might overachieve, which might be the team you mentioned, Norwich.
Yeah.
And I've got a little hunch that one team that might struggle will be Swansea.
Okay. Yeah. Who's manager there now, Gary? Is
Alan Sheehan, I believe.
Don't know.
And you've done a good job last season, but I've just got a little inkling.
They've got some money as well, haven't they? They've been linked with this Kone for 5 million. So they're looking to splash out.
No, look, it's interesting. Here we go again. This is season 58 for me. And, and you're just like a kid waiting for Christmas. A good game as a curtain raiser on Sky on Friday, Birmingham versus Ipswich. That's good. I hope that if we go to Bramall Lane, I think if it's a decent result, and by that a narrow defeat or even a draw, I'd love us to win. I think that would be a great platform with 2 games coming up at home in the Cup against MK Dons and then Charlton that should be wins. What we don't want on the opening day is to get a bit of a hiding. But look, I think we're done this evening. 600 or so people have tuned in at various stages. So thanks to everybody for that. Ellie, thank you. As always, good, intelligent comments there from you and Paul, and obviously Gary and everybody who's tuned in. We'll be doing our review of Sheffield United away on Sunday morning at 9:00 and our review of MK Dons at home on Wednesday morning at 9:00. But everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in and have a good rest of the week. All the best.